Keep It Thorough Thursdays, episode 9 weeks in. This episode is called Black Is ...
To my volume.
Black is.
Black is.
What is black?
Is.
You know what I'm
What is
saying?
black?
Obviously, it's Black History Month.
Yeah.
So this is our second episode in February. But it was only right that we do an episode on Black culture, Black, things that affect Black people, with us both being Black men. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
so it's your boy E-Double.
Boy, Cedric Lavelle. Cedric Lavelle. I don't know why I always say my name twice for some reason. Said it.
Said it. Yeah, so black is right. So we're gonna go and get off into the content. What is black, said?
Black is wealth. Black is ownership. Black is wellness. Man, I was thinking about how I could really dive into the content and really make it relatable. I know a lot of times when we go into our content, we always talk about personal experiences. So I guess for me, as it relates to wealth, ownership, and wellness, I can say now the way that I look at wealth, the way that I look at ownership, the way that I look at wellness, I can look back at things from my past and recognize that a lot of the ideas of wealth, ownership, and wellness, and many of the things that could have probably inspired me or made me look into things even more so, didn't get too often. With being an athlete, obviously wellness was just one of those things that kind of just correlated to sports, with staying healthy, eating right, that whole type of thing. But even with that, when you're young and whatnot, like, you don't really understand the dynamics of nutrition and the importance of what you eat. So even though I was getting the physical aspect of it, now that I'm older, it's like, oh yeah, like nutrition is a big part.
Yeah, no,
I
was an athlete too most of my life, and I definitely, as a youngster, I wasn't paying attention to what I was eating at all.
Boys
It was just, your metabolism, you can eat whatever, you know what I mean? You can eat whatever and go out there.
And everything else. So yeah, man, so wellness was that, but then really focus on nutrition. I understand just the effects of having an unhealthy diet. As it relates to ownership, I really didn't see too many business owners or know many people who own stocks. So just being introduced to that came late. Or even with wealth and understanding wealth, and not just equating it to a monetary value, but just just the educational part and knowing more about a certain topic or a certain field, being intellectual. Because like I was telling you, man, like by definition, wealth isn't just monetary or with money, but it's more than that. It's about being
it's an abundance of something.
It's abundance of something, being resourceful. So just taking that definition into consideration, it was like, okay, like, it's not always just about money, even though that's a part of it, but understanding that what you have, what you possess, how you give, and what you learn along the way can give back, that's useful. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that's just my overall take and experience when it comes to the topic of Black is, and more specific with wealth, ownership, and wellness.
Yeah, so boom. So Black is wild, right? Black is wealth, ownership, wellness. I guess from a personal perspective, I'm kind of like in the same boat. Like, so I don't have any like wealthy family members pertaining to wealth when we're speaking about money. You know what I mean? Now, I do feel like I had an abundance of love and support, you know what I mean, in certain aspects.
Yeah.
But as far as like a blueprint on how to gain wealth, like financially, like it just wasn't one there, and that's definitely not something they teach you in school,
Not at
And then
all.
ownership, I don't even think growing up I knew anybody who owned their own business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Besides, if you want to equate, people who was in the streets to owning their own business, you know what I'm saying? Like that was really the only,
Street entrepreneurs.
right? You know what I mean? Street entrepreneur, those are the only people I knew who owned their own business, quote unquote. But like I don't think I knew anybody who, owned a legitimate business either, And then wellness, which we kind of both spoke on. My mom wasn't. She used to try to force me to eat vegetables a little bit, but she really wasn't even eating them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we eat just a lot of fried food. And like in my family, diabetes, heart disease, is like real prevalent. You know what I mean? Like a few of my family members, grandmother, aunt, died from diabetes. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that I did see, the lack of wellness, I
Yeah.
guess, so that's really kind of, I guess, like my personal experience with the three. But so moving on, right? The wow factor. So we said black is wow, right?
Yeah.
So wealth, ownership, wellness. So the wow factor. What we want to do really is hit y'all with like some statistics. So to kind of just give you an idea of I guess the black experience in America, right? Like what we dealing with, like what are some of our uphill battles, you know what I mean? Some of the challenges that we face, some of these mountains we need to climb in order to get, to a better place pertaining to those three topics. So when it comes to wealth, so the median household income in the United States is $67,000, $67,521 to be exact. Where the median household income for black families in the U.S. is $45,870. Now, keep in mind, these statistics are for a two-person household. So, single mother households probably are typically less, right? And in a lot of situations, in black households, the women make more. Like they carry majority of the burden. And that's 60, and keep in mind the median is 67, but we drop that down. You know what I'm saying? Like the median household income for blacks is dropping that 67 number down. So that really kind of shows you how disproportionate it is. Because that I think that speaks for itself. And then moving on with that statistic when it goes to wealth is 66% of households make less. Now this is everybody. 66% of households make less than $100,000 a year, and 80% of black households make less than $100,000 a year. So I want to kind of put that into perspective. So when I was in like 7th grade, maybe, I'll never forget. So I had a teacher named Mr. Rudolph was his name, Mr. Rudolph. And I don't know what we were talking about in school. I don't remember what the day was or what the course was, but somehow we got to talking about how much money somebody should make to live comfortably, right? And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, if you and your wife can make $50,000 each, which would equate to 100 grand, that you could live comfortably. And that actually stuck with me, right? For a long time, that was my number. Like, okay, I need to get to 50. You know what I'm saying? They're like, I can live comfortably. Because Mr. Rudolph, I looked up to him. He was a black teacher, African-American, one of my first black teachers. And so that stuck with me. Now, by grace of God, I make hell of a lot more money than that now. But that was my number. You know what I'm saying? And to realize that 80% of black households don't even make that much. It's crazy. You know what I mean? And $100,000 ain't a lot of money, especially for a two-person household.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's really not a lot of money, especially once I say two-person, meaning two adults. I'm not like, you add kids into the equation, that's a whole nother ball game, And it just really kind of goes to show you the culture um that we live in, and like the
Right.
perception versus the reality.
Reality.
Because like
Yep.
a lot of people act like they balling. Like a lot of people act like they are in positions that they're really not. And all you got to do is take a step back and look at the statistics, and it'll tell you the truth. You
It's
know, like
something ain't adding up.
right. If you scroll through Facebook, you'll think everybody and their mama is balling and making $1 million. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like where the reality is that's not the reality. And in order for us to really climb this hill, and you know what I mean, change the narrative and increase that black income, that medium income for blacks, like we really got to do the work. We got to face the challenges and actually, do the work. And we'll touch on that work in a second. But go ahead, said
Yeah.
touch on the owner, or
Ownership.
if you want to add to that piece, go ahead, or
Nah,
touch on
man,
the.
you hit all the highlights on that. Like, when we spoke about it earlier, just as far as the household income and just the significant difference that there is as it relates to where we stand as a black community. Like I said earlier, like it makes you realize that there's some gaps. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, in the news and websites and whatnot, it's always talking about the wealth gap and things of that nature. But sometimes it's really understanding like what is that gap? Like what specifically has to be done to improve that? And now obviously, for years and years and years, we've been behind the curve, and certain things hasn't been accessible to us. But it's I've grown to understand that it's inevitable that we're going to have to work harder. That's just the reality of it. You know what I'm saying?
I wanna touch on something with that I didn't touch on, because you said it's important to know like what is that gap, right?
Right.
And like we did the statistic, but I want to go a little deeper in that. So obviously the difference between the median of everybody in America and then the black family is roughly $22,000 or so, right? That breaks down to about an extra $846 a paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at that, I'm pretty sure everybody could do a lot with an extra $1,600 a month.
Oh,
you know what
sure.
I'm saying? That's what that breaks down to, which that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For anybody. I don't care how much money you make. An extra $1,600 a month
You can do a lot with that.
You know what I mean? A decent amount of money. And then say this last point before I hand it back to you. To me, wealth and education are tied together.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Like, because you know the saying, if you knew better, you do better.
Do better, yeah.
And a person can't do something that they don't know about. A person can't ask a question to or ask for a solution for something that they don't know exists. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But I'm going back.
Nah, you're right, bro. Yeah, okay. So on ownership, 65.5% of Americans are homeowners. 43.1% of black people are homeowners. Of all Americans, 9.9% of them are business owners. And then of all business owners, 6% of them are black. So obviously there's two different dynamics that we spoke about in this particular, with these particular statistics: home ownership and business ownership. And when we look at ownership, obviously it can be in many different categories. So as it relates to home ownership, obviously there's been a lot of different things that have kept us behind the curve again, and not enough. And this goes back to what you were just saying about education, not having the proper education as it relates to home ownership, and not even just with education, but also with preparation. And I think that's a big opportunity that's missed a lot of times too. Properly preparing yourself for home ownership and understanding what responsibilities that you will have with being a home owner. Um, I know just based off of experiences and things that I've seen with people who purchase homes or they're not properly educated on the home buying experience. They get themselves in a bind and create significant debt, either potentially having to get their home foreclosed or not being able to maintain that home as well too. So like I said, man, just the preparation and then properly understanding the process of purchasing a home, and then also being able to stay within your means with what you're getting. And I think that's an interesting dynamic too, because I see a lot of times where, when you get approved for a certain amount, it doesn't mean that you use that full amount. You know what I'm saying? Like I know there was a equation, or if you will, where it was like, you don't want to spend 2 times the total amount of your annual income. Now, I don't know if everybody goes off of that particular equation or that particular math, but that was just something that I always had in the back of my head. So it's like, if I make X amount, and I double that, I don't want to spend more than that as it relates to purchasing a home. But that all goes into, like I said, preparation and education, right? And then as far as just the business ownership. Now, obviously, everybody may not look to be a business owner. But even if you're not, owning a business, if you're working, at least own some stocks. You know what I'm saying? Like really understanding the dynamics of ownership and how that can play in many different sectors and can be presented in many different ways as well too. I know you and I are big on entrepreneurship and ownership and having your own. I would especially say in this particular climate and how things are going within the job market, and with there being so much uncertainty around certain things, having your own really helps, because if something, goes wrong, or if you find yourself in a bind, you always have something to fall back on. Even if, you got a side hustle that you're doing while you're working.
Yeah.
You own that side hustle. That's what you do. So, just having that additional income, and like you were saying earlier today, like ownership and wealth almost automatically kind of go hand in hand. But, just having that additional income really helps in building a cushion. Or if in the event you look to scale that business and you've been doing it for a while, you grow that experience that allows you to be a owner. And if you continue to build and build on that, now you have something that you could potentially have to give to your kids, and something that can create generational wealth and things of that nature. So that's a big thing for me. You know what I'm saying? Just that ownership part, and especially from a business standpoint. But again, that goes into properly educating yourself, surrounding yourself with people who are business owners, who have been through the steps, and who have the experience that can really engage you in conversations and let you know what's possible. Because I feel like a lot of times people feel like it's not attainable. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, man, ownership. How do I even get that? Like, how do
Well,
I?
yeah. Well, the thing is what are you telling yourself? Because
Right.
if you, whatever you telling yourself, you're gonna believe it eventually, and your subconscious is gonna believe it, and then it's just not gonna happen. So anything you want to do is possible, like realistically speaking, right? Like you can't fly, you know what I'm saying? But
Right. Yeah.
anything you want to do is realistic if you really truly believe it, and you put the work in. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
There was a couple of things on ownership that I wanted to touch on that you went over. So one thing that I want everybody to realize too is when you hear like the overall statistic, that's kind of skewed a little bit, because the lower number is going to bring that average down, which makes them seem like they closer together. So I'm in this situation, 65.5% for all Americans to 43.1%, which is less than half of Black Americans. That's a 23.4% difference, right? Which ain't even that close, but it's really worse than that when you really look at the big picture. So 65.5% of Americans are homeowners. Well, 74.4% of white people are homeowners, right? Mm-hmm. And then like 61 are Asian. And I think the only, and even Hispanics, it's 48% of Hispanics are homeowners. So even Hispanics are higher homeowners. I shouldn't say that like they worse or something. They great people too, but we the worst. That's my point. Yeah. Black people are the lowest when it comes to home ownership in the United States. So you really see, you know what I mean, the kind of the discrepancy there. And like you ask yourself why. And I think you kind of hit it on the head, said with the whole education piece. Because even to get foreclosed on, at one point you was a homeowner, so you would add to that number. But to even get to the point where you can afford it and take care of it. And I think the way people have to think about it is this. Everybody's paying rent in some facet. Most people, you're paying rent in some facet. So say you're paying, and rent is expensive as hell right now. So say, I know for apartments, people paying crazy amounts. So say you paying, I don't know, say you paying $1,500 for rent for 2-bedroom or whatever the case it is. When you go to buy a house, you typically can get a lot more house for that same amount or even less sometimes. Mm-hmm. So if you balance and work with what you're already spending, you won't put yourself in a bind. You know what I'm saying? If you've been renting, an apartment or whatever for X amount of time for, the last 10 years or whatever the case it is, like you've already been consistently paying for somebody else's property. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you can do that. So don't if you've been paying $1,500 or $1,200, whatever the case it is for however many years, don't go buy a house now and raise your house payment by $500. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like stay within your range of what you've already been doing. And then the last piece, when it comes to ownership, everybody doesn't have to own a business to be an owner or to have ownership. Like you spoke on stocks, but when it comes to working, we all good at something. That's the reality. God has blessed all of us with a talent of some sort. Yeah. You need to figure out what that talent is and what it is you're good at. And then market that skill set. You don't have to necessarily be a business owner, but you can do contract work. You can market your skill set to an organization and go work for them. You know what I mean? But you own your skill set. You know what I mean? You own your career. Right. You make yourself more valuable by having a more specialized skill set that you're really good at. And when it's something that you're really good at, you're naturally gonna, it's gonna be easier for you to further your education in it and for you to, really kind of give it your all and really take it as far as you can go. So own that. You know what I'm saying? Own your skill set and what you're good at. And that'll definitely take you places. I'm sure everybody has heard the saying, if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, So, that's really the piece I wanted to touch on with what you said about the ownership. And then
that's really like Brand. I'm glad you spoke about career, because I feel like, we are our own brand. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like everybody has to understand, like you are a brand. And whatever you do, it's almost as if like your commodity. If you have a service or if you do something uniquely well, or whatever the case may be, that's a part of your brand and who you are. And like you said, you go out and you market yourself based off of the skill set that you possess. You go out and you brand yourself, and when you go on your interviews or when you're working even within your organization. And I feel a lot of times people find themselves in a position to where their skill set is not being properly utilized. So this goes back to the importance of really recognizing what you're good at. But once you recognize what you're good at and what you're naturally gifted at, really make certain that you're in a position that really cultivates what you have. You know what I'm saying? Like really be intentional about what it is that you're doing. That way that you know that your gifts and your talents and your skill set is being crafted. You know that you're growing in that position. That way you're able to take yourself to the next level within your career, you know, whether it be within that organization that you're currently with or whether you go somewhere else. You know, you've already attracted the needed knowledge and the skills and the understanding of what it is that you do. And now that not only gets you in a better position, but that potentially presents an opportunity to make more money. You know what I'm saying? So I like you said, bro, I think it's very very useful and certainly very beneficial to understand the importance of seeing yourself as a business, seeing yourself as a brand, and really marketing yourself with an understanding of what you do well and what your skill set is. That's it.
110%. And that's another form of ownership.
That's
so
it.
the last one in the wow factor is wellness. And really the only two statistics I really want to touch on here is, so the life expectancy in the US is 77 years. And that actually dropped from like 2000, which is crazy. Like you would think health expectancy would be going up with the advances in medicine and all that. But our eating habits and people taking care of their bodies is actually dropping. Like we're not as active, and, you know, as we once were. But the life expectancy for a Black person in the U.S. is 72 years. So our average life expectancy is 5 years less than the average, which again, we keep ending up on the lower end of all of these spectrums.
Yeah.
And I don't even got to put no statistics up about diabetes and heart disease and all of that for Black folks, because we all know. We know what we eat. We know the soul food we love. We know how greasy that shit is. We know we love fried food. We know you know what I mean? So it's just really being mindful of all that, you know, and really understanding what you're putting into your body and the effects it has on you, you know, and making conscious decisions and efforts to kind of, you know, try to do better, you know. So really that's really all I'm gonna touch on wellness and kind of where we stand as a Black people. You know what I'm saying? We definitely got to do better. Period. You know?
Yeah.
So moving on to our last section. So basically, we're gonna take wealth ownership and wellness that we discussed in the last two slides and basically touch on ways that we can improve in those areas, and you know how you can make strides to improve in those areas. So I'm gonna let you go ahead, Sid, and hit that.
So for education, or for wealth rather, education is a key component to building wealth. As we just said in the previous slides, education. 73% of business owners have at least an associate's degree. Also with wealth, it's all about investing in the stock market, you know, being a player within the market, and understanding that dynamic, you know, whether it be through reading books or whether it be through properly educating yourself with YouTubes or finding somebody that you know or that you may have as a friend of a friend, but just not being afraid to ask questions. And then lastly, creating custodial accounts for your children. So with each three of those things, which are very specific, I'm just gonna go back to the one with education, with it being a component to building wealth and with business ownership. I have a master's degree. You know, I was fortunate enough to get a master's degree while working at Verizon, and they paid for it. But just the knowledge that I gained through my master's program has allowed me to transition into being a business owner. It's given me the opportunity to understand how owning a business works. It's given me an opportunity to really recognize what I'm good at within a business structure. And even though I'm early into the phase of entrepreneurship, I'm supremely not even saying hopeful, but I know what I'm capable of. And through my education and through my experience, it gives me that level of certainty and confidence to pursue something on a broader scale, which I know is going to create wealth, which I know is going to create generational wealth. Like you and I had spoke about just the other day about intellectual property, and how through business ownership and having something, whether it be through trademarks or through copyrights or what's the P word I'm looking for?
Patents.
Patents, yeah, are through patents, but understanding how that works and how that can create something that can live on for years and years and years and years to come. That all comes through education, properly understanding how those things work, and being aware of what you have to offer and what your skill set is and what you can provide as a service, right? And then, with investing in the stock market, there's so many different things that you can do. And I understand, because even when I read books, it can get overwhelming. Like the verbiage can just seem like a foreign language. But just like with a foreign language, eventually, and like you say all the time, like it's the law of averages. If you continue doing something, putting yourself in a position to learn it, and like you just said a few minutes ago, what you're telling yourself, if you continue to, embrace the idea of learning something different and continuously engaging yourself into that knowledge, eventually things are going to start to register. I know with the stock market, it's really useful to understand how strategies work, and understanding the psychology of it, and understanding it's an emotional game.
There's so many different ways you can invest in the stock market. You know what I mean? So don't get overwhelmed thinking you need to understand
everything.
Like the best way to really get involved in the stock market, people always like to ask you, like, well, what stock should I buy? And that's like a hard question to tell somebody, because everybody's knowledge is different. Like me, I'm in the tech space. I understand tech at a very deep level. So I made a play with AMD, which is a processor company. And I knew that they were going to have some success because one of their competitors was struggling, made a lot of money in the stock market. Depending on your area where you work, you may be privy or knowledgeable about a particular company or service or something where you may know, like, this company is getting ready to do something big. So like you invest in that stock, and if you don't have that, then I just tell people to typically invest in companies that you buy. Right. So like if you buy Nikes all the time, if you like PlayStation, Apple. If you like Apple, you know what I mean? Like there's a reason you like that brand. There's a reason that you invest your hard-earned money into those items. So buy their stock, And the best way to play that game is long-term. Buy and hold. And we're going to do another episode where we get into the into index funds and all that, and versus buying individual stocks and all that, and we can get deeper into custodial accounts. But I wanted to touch on the education piece right quick. Your bro had asked a question about all education, and if I understand this, maybe this will answer the question if I understood it correctly. So the statistic was 73% of business owners have at least an associate's degree. And the breakdown is 52% of them have a bachelor's degree and 21% of them have at least an associate's degree. So that's the 73% breakdown. I think what you get from that statistic is the importance of education, right? That most of them have additional education. Now, with that being said, I personally don't think that you have to have a degree to be successful. You just need to be continuing to educate yourself. Now, most people, if they don't go on about, traditional forms of education to go get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, they typically stop learning. They typically stop educating themselves. They think school stops after high school and you don't need to continue to educate yourself. So that's what I get from that. I think that statistic shows you the importance of education, and that how most of the people who are successful go to college, but you don't necessarily have to if you continue to educate yourself. If you continue, because you can educate yourself vastly on various topics and be successful. There's tons of business owners, and I know a few of them who didn't go to college. You know what I mean? Now, let me not say tons because statistics show otherwise, you know, but there's a decent amount. I think so. 10% of business owners have a high school diploma, and then 9% of business owners have a master's, and 8% have some other degree. So they may have like I don't even know what other degree, like maybe they're talking about like certifications or something. Like I don't know what other degree that could be, or maybe a PhD or something. You know, but majority has a bachelor's or an associate's, but you can be successful without. I think that statistic just shows you the importance of education, of that most of the people who own businesses did go to school, but the schooling is education, right? So yeah. So to go to ownership now. So what can us as Black folks do to better our ownership? So we talked about wealth and educating yourself and how to become a business owner, which builds wealth. That also gives you ownership, right? If you start your own business and that contributes to your wealth, you're also ownership. And Said just spoke to this earlier about how they kind of go together. When you're doing it right, most wealthy people own things. You know, not too many broke people own things. You know, so and now to speak on the part about branding yourself and treating yourself and your skill set like a business. So, you know, finding something that you're passionate about or skill you possess and marketing that skill set, which we talked about. Like, that's a way of forming some type of ownership, and you're forming ownership over your time and over your path and your career, you know, and that is ownership, you know, having control of what you're doing and how you're doing it is ownership. And another way to gain ownership is by leveraging credit to increase your purchasing power. So obviously, if you buy a house, your credit got to be to a certain level. But then once you buy a house, a mortgage is a certain type of credit on your account that helps you. A mortgage has way more weight than a car loan, and a car loan has way more weight than like a credit card. So if you know you got credit cards, you managing them properly, which we spoke on before, utilizing less than 30% of your available credit. If you got a car loan, you making sure you paying them bills on time every single time. And if you got a mortgage, you paying that mortgage on time. Those things will help raise your credit, which you can leverage for business loans. You can build equity in your house and pull some of that money out to maybe invest in something else. Like, it gives you a lot of power to then, you know, you can use that power to now invest in other forms of ownership, other things that you can own and that you can do well. But it really, a lot of that starts with credit. Like when it comes to ownership, a lot of it comes down to credit and making sure you're really properly managing your credit. And then say you're not at the point where you want to buy a home and live in it. Like, maybe you're nervous, maybe you know, for various reasons. Maybe you're single, maybe you don't have a family, maybe you don't have a significant other or any children, and you don't need a house, right? Okay, buy a house and rent it out. Form of ownership. Your tenant is paying your mortgage, you getting a little extra off the top, and you can go rent and live, you know, live your life. But you're still building some equity, and you're growing your net worth, and you know it's benefiting you. So in the future, if you do have children, you do get a significant other, or even if you do and y'all just don't want to buy a house right now, you're having something that you can pass on, you know, to your family, to your children, to, you know, something in your name that's building and growing wealth. So like, buy a house and rent it out. So those are, you know, kind of 3 different ways where you can contribute to ownership, you know, and these aren't, you know, just for Black people, you know what I mean? These are for anybody. But this is what Black people need to do, because other people are doing this, you know? these other demographics are doing these things. You know, we need to do this.
Yeah,
you know?
I'd be scared to.
Exactly.
It's changing the psychology of it.
Exactly.
How
So
we
I'm gonna let you
perceive it.
take wellness and
Oh,
then
wellness. Yeah. So simple things with wellness. Create a strict fitness plan and stick to it, and be conscious of your family's medical history and visit your doctor frequently. And again, you know, we can't stress it enough on how important wellness is and maintaining your health. And really just doing things that are preventative maintenance. Obviously, when you really get into the nuts and bolts of wellness and health, you know, you can talk about your macros, your micro, your calories, you know, what sodium is this, and cholesterol, and all these other things, your protein, all these other things. You can go into detail, but also it's just understanding that it's important just to be conscious of what you're eating and understanding the long-term effects that it can have on you down the line. Obviously, when you're in your youth, your metabolism is different, you know, activity is different. But they say as you get older, you have to be more mindful of what it is that you're eating. But obviously, the best time to start is to start as early as you can. I know there's a book called Blue Zones. I can't think of the author's name, but he speaks about like 5 different groups across the world where the life expectancy of the people that live within those communities are like over 100 years old or something like that. And it talks about the different diets that these particular groups and cultures utilize that allow them to live as long as they live. But it also talks about how the American diet is crap, pretty much. And what's being advertised and promoted to us really doesn't have the best effects on our body. But it talks about how, you know, like the Mediterranean diet is one of the most useful diets that you can put yourself on, and just the quality of foods and whatnot that's eaten or ate within those particular groups, and the effects that it has on them as far as how long they're able to live. But like I said, man, it's really about conscious eating and understanding what it is that you're putting into your body, and then just doing the preventative maintenance things. Like I talk to my wife about this all the time, how people always talk about, you know, I'm gonna die anyway, so I might as well just eat what I want to eat. Like, well, I don't want to put all this, I don't want to count calories and do all this. Okay, it doesn't take all of that. Like I said, you know, if you're going for a certain type of,
and really, once you do it and you get into the habit of it, you don't have to do
it's
that
second nature by then.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't even think about it. But you know, a lot of people use nutrition for different reasons. You know, sometimes if you're going for a certain aesthetic with your body, right? If you want to look a certain way, that comes with nutrition. You're gonna have to change up how you eat. But if you're just eating just to fuel yourself and to maintain a healthy balance in your life, it's really all about just being conscious. Understanding how foods can have an effect on you. You know, if you're just eating fried chicken and cookies all day, man, that ain't gonna help you. You know what I'm saying? It's not beneficial for you
at all.
And it's the common saying that food is for fuel. It's to fuel your body, get you through your day, make you more active, give you more energy, and you know that's useful. But then also, like you said, being conscious of your family's medical history and visit your doctor frequently. I know in my family, and you talked about this too, but I know diabetes is prevalent. You know, whether it's type 1, type 2 diabetes, and I know that's something that's plagued the Black communities across the world. So even with that understanding, you know that as a descendant or if you know something's in your family, it can have the possibility of trickling down to you if you don't take the necessary steps to maintain your health and do the things that are necessary, you know, to keep you from going down that route. And with nutrition, man, it's just discipline, you know, like it's really understanding that, yeah, I could eat this, and don't get me wrong, like it's cool to have like your cheat days or have
Yeah,
certain times.
don't deprive yourself.
Yeah, don't deprive yourself, but you want to have more good
Balance
than bad. You want to balance it out, and it really just comes into, and I've got into a habit of just like studying foods more. You know, different types of seasoning, different types of substitutions that you can use instead of using something else. So
and sometimes you can get the same type of flavor.
same type of
You know what
flavor.
I'm saying? Like, cause the air fryer is magical.
Where wonders, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
I love my little air fryer.
Yeah, you know, it's
You know
magical.
what I'm saying?
But so yeah, just being conscious, man.
And that's really what it boils down to. But you want to be healthy, man. The saying goes, health is wealth. You want to be healthy. You want to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You know, it makes no sense to put in so much effort, put in so much time, and really build something up if you're not able to enjoy it and enjoy it the right way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to be a hindrance to yourself. You know, so really just taking the time to take care of your health, take care of your physical condition. It can definitely go a long way, and it creates a significant advantage when you're able to do that, for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with everything you said. So yeah, so Black is Wild. Black is Wealth, Ownership, Wellness. As always, there's a link in the comments for the kit. So our Black is kit, where you can see these statistics, and then we have references. So all of these statistics we gave you, we ain't just pull them out our ass, right? Like, it's from the CDC, it's from you know, the census.gov. You know, there's these are reputable sources, you know, where you can go and validate these numbers. And yeah, I think some of those statistics were wild. You know what I mean? Like, it really opens your eyes and sees areas where we need to improve. And really, to close out, I think we all know that Black people, from the time, you know, we go all the way back to when we first was brought to this country. You know what I mean? From slavery up to, you know, the Emancipation Proclamation, to Jim Crow laws, to present day, right? We've been put at a disadvantage, and we've always had to work a little bit harder to even just get an opportunity or a chance. And I think all of us can acknowledge that. Yeah. But a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, though, is you got to put the work in too, though, right? Like, we're at a point where, yeah, we understand the disadvantages, but that's no longer an acceptable excuse. You got to put the work in. You know what I mean? Like, and you put that work in, that strong will, it'll get you places, for sure. You know, you might have to work a little harder. You might have to put in an extra day here or there than your competition, but it's going to get you where you need to go. 110%. And like I said, I agree. Systematic racism is 100% real. I will never in my life argue that point, but that is not what's stopping us. You know, that is, I stand on that 110%. Systematic racism plays a huge role in why home ownership is where it is right now. Systematic racism there was a statistic I didn't even drop on y'all that I was going to drop. So 76.3% of the population in America is white. 13.4% of the population in the United States is Black. Yet 57% of the population in jails are white, but 38.3% of the prison population is Black. You see how disproportionate that is. Whites make up 77% of the population, yet they only account for 57% of the prison population. Black people only make up 13%, but yet we account for 38% of the prison population. That's 100% systematic racism. There's no logical explanation. Black people aren't more dangerous or more criminal or more anything than anybody else. You know what I mean? We just get targeted, and there's tons of statistics you can look at. There's way more police presence in the hood than there is in the suburbs. You're way more likely to get pulled over and go to jail for smoking a blunt or something in the hood than you are in the suburbs. Get a slap on the wrist, go home. So systematic racism is real, and they definitely play a role in all of these things. The point, though, is to go back to what we discussed earlier. What you telling yourself, right? If you keep telling yourself that I'm at a disadvantage, no matter how hard I work, I'm not going to get anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? You're going to believe that. And that is going to be your obstacle, not the systematic racism.
Yeah.
That's going to become your obstacle.
Because you're going to be fighting against yourself.
Exactly. So that's said all that to say this, you know what I mean? We have to work hard. We have to educate ourselves. We have to invest in ourselves. We have to put the effort in, the work in. We have to organize and have structure and go for it. You have to believe like deeply in what it is you're working for. And one of the things I'm learning as I read more and as I kind of grow as a man and do conversations and talking with Said and other business owners and things like that, you have to define your purpose.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're trying to accomplish. And that can change.
Right.
But you need to know what you're working towards. You need to know what you're working for. And like a lot of people don't know. A lot of people can't answer that question, you know, like because they're not working towards anything, to be honest. It's just day to day. It's just day to day. I'm gonna wake up today, I'm gonna go to work, can't wait till I get off work so I can go do nothing.
No drive, no passion,
right?
No purpose.
Their most exciting part of their day is when they get to go do nothing.
Yeah. That ain't gonna cut it. And it's funny that you talk about purpose. Because I believe that's like one of the